On my life, this cold has gotten better, but I apologize if I do sound just a little sniffly. Welcome to After Hours. Some of you may have seen that I got remarks back from my professors earlier this week,
I'm scared.
and I earned a higher score than I was aiming for.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
I am so relieved. But a few people have asked about the details of my master's program, so I wanted to offer a bit of insight into my school and my experience. I'll also go over some of my coursework and some of my favorite books I got to study. First things first, why did I go for a Master of Arts degree? Great question. And the answer is actually in two parts. Number one, I am a better student than I was 10 years ago. And two, I was in search of a career pivot. Allow me to explain. I was a pretty mediocre student in high school because I was easily bored. College was a little better because I got to select more of my curriculum, but I definitely had my struggle areas. And while I don't regret my time there, I can go ahead and acknowledge that my experience wasn't altogether quite as scholarly as it probably should have been. Fast forward to 2020 and we're all trapped at home. Trust me, I found plenty of ways to occupy my time, but I realized that over the course of 8 years or so, I had become much better with research. I was far more invested in analysis, and I sought out things that challenged me without dismissing my busy work. This led me to look into getting an English degree, which I did. I earned a Bachelor of Arts in English online. I had a great experience and I was eager for more. I used to not be a very good student, and once I became a better one, I wanted to seize the opportunity to do something with my academic interests. I also had two excellent professors in my English program who were very encouraging. They both wrote my recommendation letters that helped me get into my master's. They were so happy for me when I was accepted, and now I get to tell them that my thesis was well received. Now about the career pivot. My background is in marketing and communications, which I kind of fell into after college because I happened to be both very organized and a fairly good writer. This then bled into a stint as a commerce editor, where I developed shopping articles and listicles of products for various websites and magazines. And that was really fun at first. And then I hated it. It was fun to get free stuff in the mail all the time. I got paid for talking about this mascara or that packing cube, but after a couple of years, I was done. It felt irresponsible. It felt like rampant overconsumption, and it just wasn't something I saw myself doing long term. I am, however, extremely grateful that that experience paved the way for what is now my freelance writing career. I do lifestyle content, travel, women's health, food and dining, a little of everything. And I've done it for blogs, for small business websites, marketing materials, the list goes on. And this all felt way better in my soul than 40 things you can buy under $10. There was also a lot more freedom to pick my own topics. Some of you may see where I'm going with this. Written content, especially online, has been in an upheaval for a while now. And while AI isn't the only reason, it's definitely a big one. The job market is bad for everyone. And freelancers like me are now competing not just with ChatGPT, but with thousands of laid off professionals who are also struggling to get work. I won't say I saw it coming or that I called it, but I was definitely aware of the possibility that my industry was not going to recover quickly. And I needed to be really honest with myself about what I wanted for my future. Now, I have been told that I would make a good teacher thousands of times, but I did not see myself teaching grade school. I know the world needs great teachers. I have infinite respect for the profession, but I also know myself and I would absolutely burn out trying to do that job. But teaching college, especially on a course by course basis, now that I could see myself doing. And the more I looked into it a couple of years ago, the more I realized I had the option of possibly dipping my toes in without wasting oodles of money and tons of my time. I could get my master's degree in a subject I knew I adored, and then I could worry about possibly gaining a bit of experience in the classroom as maybe an assistant or an adjunct at a local community college. Now, as of today, we are not quite there yet, but that's my next step, and I feel really good about it because I'm just as interested in exploring that now as I was a couple of years ago when I came up with the idea. If it works out and that's my new path, amazing. And maybe I'll look into possibly getting my PhD. If it doesn't work out and it turns out that that's not for me, I still have a postgraduate degree in a subject I love that can help guide me down a different avenue. So that's the why. Now let's get into the how. I did not spend long searching before I found a master's program I loved. It needed to be either very close to me geographically or completely online. I was still working full-time. I needed some degree of flexibility. And that right there took most options right off the list. I also knew I wanted a program that didn't focus overly much on Western culture. As much as I acknowledge the impact of British and American literature, that is not all there is. I was really in need of a program that looked at literature more globally. And from there, it narrowed down to two. One was way too expensive. And the final option that turned out to be perfect for me was the University of Hertfordshire. As you might imagine, UH is based in Hertfordshire in the UK, just a little north of London, and they offer both in-person and fully online programming. Everything I needed to know was immediately available online without me having to submit a request for information. Love. And the application process was incredibly smooth. I started in September of 2023, and I enrolled in 3 semesters per year so that I could finish in 2 years. This was also completely self-funded, which I know can be prohibitive for a lot of people. The things that were really working in my favor and saved me a lot of money, though, this is a British institution and a completely online program. A UK school, on average, is going to be less expensive than a US school, and a virtual program is generally more affordable than an in-person program. So I had both of those going for me. Yes, it made money a little tighter at times month to month, but I physically cringe at the idea of taking out more student loans, and the fact that I didn't have to in order to pay for this one was a huge relief. But we're there now, we made it! UH does also offer some financial aid options, but I'll be honest, I didn't look too deeply into those, because A, I knew that the tuition was already reasonably affordable for me, and B, the idea of sorting through another country's red tape about whether or not I qualified by not being a UK citizen, yeah, I'm good. There was a scholarship available that I did apply for but didn't get, but someone else in my cohort did get it, and I'm thrilled that they did. Scholarships are definitely available, and the faculty is really good about making sure students are aware of them. Into the actual structure of the program. I won't bore you with too many details, but essentially it started with a research module where we reviewed major types of literary analysis. Feminist theory, queer theory, psychoanalysis. We went over them all. And this was mostly to make sure that every student had a solid enough grasp on each to write academic papers from every possible perspective. There were also 3 topics modules, and the subjects each of them focus on rotate depending on when you start. My 3 were eco-criticism, historical fiction, and reading the vampire. That last one may have been another aspect of the program that helped me decide to attend. These 3 classes were research intensives, in which your entire grade is determined solely by your academic papers. We were still expected to participate in discussion forums and respond to each other's observations. There was a ton of reading involved. But overall, your midterm is an academic paper and your final is an academic paper. The midterm was typically worth 40% of our final grade, and the final was worth 60%. No pressure. This also means you don't have anywhere to hide. You either know what you're talking about or you don't. You either understood the lessons or you didn't. And this is probably the key thing I enjoyed about grad school. Test taking used to be my strong suit. That was what essentially saved my grades through high school. I tested pretty well. But upon returning to school in my 30s, I discovered that I much preferred research writing. And having to sit through proctored exams in my English bachelor's became really frustrating. Side note, my brother has a theory that this is due to having spent many years in the workforce. In very few real-world instances as an adult are you under pressure to remember everything you've learned. Life in general is an open note quiz. All of this to say, my strong suit shifted from test taking to research papers. And getting the chance to really take my time and shape my argument with each topic, I found that really satisfying, even if I didn't always do so perfectly. Without going too deeply into each of these courses, here's a quick overview and my experience in each of them. Eco-criticism focused on place and environment in literature. Historical fiction considered how the genre maintained a dialogue with larger cultural and critical debates in various time periods. And reading the vampire followed the evolution of vampire lore throughout history. Obviously, those are extremely simplified descriptions of my coursework, but you get the idea. Completely unexpectedly, the one I was most nervous about turned out to be the class where I excelled the most, and that was eco-criticism. I found the exploration of personal placement and how environment plays a role in literature really captivating. I had lots to explore there. This is also the course where I dove into creative nonfiction, which wasn't something I'd encountered too much of previously, but it hooked me very quickly. A couple of my favorites for eco-criticism were Rings of Saturn by W.G. Sebald. This book is a bit of a hybrid between fiction, travel guide, and memoir. It follows a nameless narrator on a walking tour of Suffolk, and it explores time, memory, and identity. And Trace by Laurette Savoy. Focusing on memory, history, race, and the American landscape, this book really explores how the terrain of the United States intertwines with the memory of the United States. This book was both the winner of the American Book Award as well as the winner of the ASLE Environmental Creative Writing Award. Historical fiction was a little bit of a challenge. There were elements I struggled with, but the texts we were assigned were so compelling. This is where we read Hamnet and The Remains of the Day. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell fictionalizes the grief of William Shakespeare and his wife over the loss of their 11-year-old son Hamnet, and considers how this may have inspired the play Hamlet. And The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro follows the butler of the Darlington household and considers both class and the conditioning of subservience. This is also where we discussed the impact of trauma on memory and historical reenactments as fiction. Lots of fantastic discussion in this class. Finally, reading The Vampire is where I am probably most excited to return to some of my research and expand upon it further. My final topic was, when did the vampire as a character become sympathetic? And while I am very satisfied with the points I landed on, there was so much more I could have done with it. I loved how engaging all of our prompts were, and how excited everyone got to chat about their favorite vampire stories. We started way further back in history, looking through every different culture's variation on vampire lore. But yes, mainstays like the vampire, Carmilla, Dracula definitely made their appearance, but trust me, we talked about everything from Buffy the Vampire Slayer to Twilight. And then I added True Blood and Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows. Oh, I also added An Education in Malice. And this will turn into a spiral, so stay tuned for another video. Parts of grad school really are choose your own adventure. Once I completed all of my topics classes, there was a semester completely devoted to fleshing out my thesis topic, how I might structure an argument around it. This is where we really got to bounce ideas off of our classmates and dive into a few more research methods that could help us explore our chosen subject. This was extremely helpful. I wanted to be somewhat original, choose a line of inquiry that hadn't gotten a lot of academic consideration. I'd been encouraged many times to select something I was really passionate about, which is how I landed on 21st century Greco-Roman mythology retellings, specifically those in fantasy and romance. I will get into the details of my thesis in another video, but the punchline is this: there have been dozens of examples of media that reimagines classical myth, and I wanted to know why. Apparently, my excitement for such a topic came across very clearly in my proposal, because I was greenlit to continue that line of research in my thesis. One more thing, I use the word thesis because that's what I'm used to it being called in the States, but in the UK, it was only ever referred to as a dissertation. I typically associate the word dissertation with PhD programs, but you get the idea. A very long and very thorough academic paper that essentially proves I know what I'm talking about. One that took me 4 months to write and research. It's also worth mentioning that a big learning curve for me was getting used to the British grading system. While grades are technically out of 100, actually getting a score of 100 is virtually impossible. The highest grade I received in my entire program was an 85, which was considered extremely good. And I panicked the first time I saw a grade in the 60s before I realized, wait, I'd actually done a lot better than I thought I had. So that's the quick recap of my grad school program. There will be a graduation in a few months. I'll post lots of photos and videos about it when it happens. And if I'm feeling strong enough sometime next year, maybe I'll think about another degree on top of this one. Comment below with any suggestions. If you're seeing this on Friday, thank you so much for being a Bindery subscriber. And if you're seeing this on Sunday, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and maybe think about joining us over on Bindery. Mwah!